This is a production of the Parsons Trading Institute. All rights reserved. Disclaimer required by the CFTC. If you risk it, you lose it. ReversalMagic.com presents the Reversal Magic video course. The power to predict, the power to profit. Reversal Magic training video number 4. Determining stronger reversals. As we compare individual waves, it becomes quite clear that some waves, well, they're rather small, while others are quite large. The larger ones naturally would provide much stronger reversal signals. But waves blend together, and knowing which is of the larger wave and which of the smaller wave becomes a challenge. How do we in fact determine which are the stronger reversal signals? That is what we're going to look at through this series of videos. As we look at an actual market where the waves are all blended together, such as this market of gold, even in such a situation we still see evidence of these larger waves and their characteristics. For example, can you see this wave pattern that develops from this low to this high and back down again? Or perhaps from this low all the way up to this high and back down again. Obviously, these wave patterns and the reversal signals they generate will be of primary focus. There are medium-sized waves in here as well that go up and down, and these too are of importance in determining reversal signals. And among them are much smaller waves that will zigzag and develop just a little bump in the market. The little bumps in the market, well, these are best avoided in most cases because they will tend to provide very weak signals. So just by looking at the characteristics of the market and the patterns that develop, you can pretty well pick out many of these larger patterns that will give you the strongest of reversals. So obviously then, we will need to avoid these smaller wave patterns and instead focus on larger wave patterns, because the larger wave patterns, well, they're going to provide the stronger reversals. This is where the ability to identify wave patterns is very important. And as your skill in identifying these strong waves increases, so will your ability to locate the strongest of reversals. Aside from the wave pattern, there are some additional criteria that we can use to filter out the strongest of reversals and avoid the weak ones. As mentioned earlier, one factor is simply the price difference. If we're determining a reversal off of these points, then obviously the price difference between this low and this high is fairly substantial, and therefore it would play a role in determining that would result in a strong reversal. Using a higher time frame to determine a reversal signal will by default provide stronger reversals. For example, in this gold market, if we're trading on the daily time frame and we go to a weekly chart or weekly view, we obviously have points available to us that are beyond that of the scope of the daily time frame. When we use that to determine a reversal, we end up with a substantial reversal signal, as we see right here how the market substantially dropped following this reversal. Once a reversal is determined on a higher time frame, all you have to do is go down to the smaller time frame and find the corresponding reversal. Note this point. All reversals will have a corresponding reversal on a smaller time frame, and this is true of this one as well. If we change this time frame back to a daily, well, it just so happens we're right on where we need to be. But remember, technically, this reversal covers a 5-day period, a week, because it was a weekly chart we were looking at. So if we were to analyze this, we would need to make sure, if we're going to trade it on a daily time frame, that we have the correct day. How do we do that? We'll find a corresponding reversal that fits inside that range. For example, here's a series that would provide a strong reversal, opposing point last. And what do we find? Here we're right on the money when it comes to the actual reversal. By using these points, we end up with a very strong reversal. Now, typically, although these points are valid, strong points, we would not necessarily have known that they would have had this great and strengthened reaction in the market. But by going to the weekly chart, we have the opportunity to see that indeed we're dealing with a very strong reversal. And by refining it in the daily, we have the actual day that we can enter the market. So using the larger time frame and then narrowing it down with a corresponding reversal in a smaller time frame gives you a very strong signal. So obviously then, higher time frames provide a valuable resource for significant reversal signals. But it's not the only resource we have available. So let's consider some of these others. A secondary resource for significant reversal signals is that of extreme highs and lows. Now, as we look at this gold market, this has a number of extremes, as we can see, for example, this low here and this high up here. But even some of these medium level swings can be considered extreme. Using any of these points is likely to provide a very significant reversal and one worth trading. Another resource for determining strong and significant reversals is that of the balance point. Now, the balance point is not going to be discussed in detail in this series of videos. There's another series of videos covering that. But it is a balance point of swings and is used in a number of ways. It also provides powerful reversal signals. An example can be seen from this swing that runs from this low up to this high. There's a balance point that exists right here with this gap that occurs. Using these points between this gap and the corresponding high, we can determine a strong reversal. An example is right here. We connect these two and this high, and we end up with the actual high of the market itself. And let us not forget the highs and lows accompanied by strong and very distinct swings. Now, some are quite obvious because they're the extreme lows or highs, and even among the medium level we might find extreme highs and lows. But there are a number of other highs and lows that develop off strong patterns. For example, look how strong the swing is up and back down and back up again. This sharp contrast provides distinct highs and lows that will provide a strong signal. Again, strong movement here and back up as well as down, providing distinct swings that stand out as significant, which in turn provides significant reversals. We can also use distinct highs and lows that are contained within a large consolidation pattern, particularly when they're used with other significant highs and lows. An example can be seen here. In reality, that there's a triangle pattern that develops, a descending triangle, and the consolidation pattern lasts for quite some time before it finally breaks higher. This consolidation pattern, typically, on many of these points, will provide weak signals, but some of these points are quite distinct in the swings that develop. If we use a prior high or low, for example this low down here, which was an extreme low, and combine it with a low that stands out within this consolidation, and along with significant highs that stand out, then there are two we can work with here. There's one here, and there's one here. What we end up with are reversals that tend to be rather significant. For example, this reversal here is a low that causes the market to continue its trend upward to its high. This reversal sends the market lower, quite strong and significant, even though the points are really part of a consolidation pattern. Before we leave off the subject of consolidations, we want to talk about the end of the consolidation as also another source of significant reversal signals, particularly when they're combined with significant highs and lows. Now, if you look at a consolidation, rather than focusing on the highs and lows that form, what we're talking about is the end of the pattern, which itself may be kind of weak and nondescript. It may taper up to join or continue the trend. What makes it important is the fact that the market has finally changed direction. In essence, a wave rose up to here and then had trouble or tried to decline here. But a larger wave kept moving, so it resulted in more of a neutral movement of the market. When the market finally takes off, well, what's happened? This wave has finally changed direction and has joined the other wave in the same movement. Therefore, this has a distinctness about it in that that wave pattern has actually changed its direction. That fact lends itself that the end of the point of the consolidation provides a source of a significant reversal signal. In other words, I can take this pattern here using a prior low and simply joining it with that and determining reversals. And I can join up a couple of these highs along with it. And what I come up with are reversal signals that tend to be rather significant. For example, here we have one right here that is this high here. Here we have this low that occurred when the market dropped. And finally we have one over here, which, well, it's a part of a consolidation, but again a distinct low. And so it provides a source of significant reversal signals, even though itself may not stand out. In fact, it may be weak where the market's rising to go into line with the trend rather than providing a distinct point itself. So do not forget to use the end of the consolidation. Now that we've considered good sources for determining strong reversals, let's look at the other side of the coin and consider some that are poor or weak choices so that we can avoid using them. The first area of concern is that of using a low time frame to determine your reversals. And that can include the one that's being traded. Now, some obvious factors here. You're not going to use a 10-minute chart to determine reversals that you're going to be using to trade the daily chart. They're obviously going to be way too weak. But even on the daily time frame, there are reversals that are simply too weak. Now, the chart as we have here, which is all condensed and compressed, provides ample, large, strong reversals. The problem is that many people do this. They enlarge the chart to a point where the areas that you would use for reversals are just simply too weak. While they may provide a reversal, they won't be a significant reversal. Back out from the chart and allow yourself an opportunity to use stronger points for reversals, and avoid the lower levels that will give you signals that, well, they'll be less than spectacular. Another area of concern is that of using a point that's still contained within a trend. To show you what I'm talking about, let's enlarge this chart and take a look at this point right here. Now, it's higher than the prior bar, but in reality it's still contained within the activity of this downtrend that we see right here. And yet individuals will be tempted to use this very point as a source to determine a reversal. Well, the fact is that because it's still contained within a trend, there's no real distinct swing that swings away enough to stand out. It's not going to provide much of a reversal. And so it's better off to avoid such points. Be wary of using points that are contained within a trend. Another poor source for reversal signals is that of short duration swings. While this is a judgment call area, you can basically count on the fact that if you're just dealing with one, maybe two bars that are going against the prevailing trend or swing, well, it's going to provide just a weak signal. An example can be seen here when we shrink this down and look at a swing that looks by itself to be fairly decent. We can see how deep this goes and pulls away and comes back down away from a trend line. So it's not entirely small per se, but it only has two bars in opposition to it before moving on. This short duration creates a problem or a weakness in what we see, and when we triangulate this, well, what we end up with is a reversal that's certainly not spectacular. In fact, all the market does is pull up momentarily and drift over, slowly increasing its decline until finally it drops. So obviously we want to avoid short duration swings. In a similar vein, we would want to avoid narrow wave patterns as well, because they are weak even though they may have a substantial price difference between points. An example can be seen here where we might use this high along with this little bar that extends as a high as well. While we can triangulate these points and determine a reversal, the fact is that because this hugs the line so well, so close, the signal itself, even though there is a substantial price difference between the high and low, will tend to be weak. And as we triangulate it, what we end up with is this reversal here, or this bar, which sets a slight high, and the market does eventually drop, but you can see the reaction is very slow, and really the bar that creates a reaction market is several bars later over here. So obviously that only provides a very weak signal, and a reason why we would avoid narrow wave patterns. Another poor choice for determining reversal signals are those that, well, it's going to be a long time before you ever see them intersect. And by that I mean that the angle used in determining that reversal, well, it extends out considerably. In this case, we have a declining line, and eventually it will meet this horizontal line. That's going to be a long ways off, as you can see here. The problem with that is that this wave, well, it's likely to dissipate over a period of time, and therefore its strength will have basically disappeared. And even if you did have a strong wave pattern, odds are that by the time you get to it, it'll be very weak or even non-existent. So avoid situations where you have a long time before you actually see the intersection of the lines. One final poor source of reversal signals that we want to address is that of using points within or contained inside the consolidation pattern itself. An example can be seen here, where we have a consolidation pattern, a triangle pattern, where it shrinks down until finally breaks to move higher. This consolidation of itself is going to show a number of weak waves. And as an example, let's take 2 points and triangulate it with a third here within this consolidation. We do end up with a reversal, but as you can see, well, the reversal is rather weak. The market drops momentarily, only to rise back up and continue the trend. This is because in a consolidation pattern, the larger waves, well, they're more in a neutral status, and the smaller waves start to stand out, waves that are weak. The problem with this is that we're not using anything that would add strength to it. We're not using a prior low or high that may be outside the consolidation pattern. We're not even using the high and low of the pattern itself, or even the end. All these things could add some strength to the pattern, but instead all we're using are points or a small wave contained inside the pattern. So therefore, since we end up with a weak signal, we would want to avoid doing this. Another major factor that will impact the strength of your reversal signal is that of volatility itself. Now, volatility is defined as the amount of price movement within a given period of time, and it can be viewed from a single bar to an actual swing. For example, here we have a nice long bar we can compare to other bars that may exist in the market, such as this one. Obviously, this is longer and therefore greater volatility than this bar down here. From a swing standpoint, or period of time, we could view perhaps this swing here. This length is obviously much stronger than this swing down here, meaning this has greater volatility than this latter one. When you look at a market and you see changes in volatility or price movement and price swings, they give you some indication of what you can expect from a reversal signal. For example, if we determine a reversal up here, we have a couple of decent points, and we get a reversal right this low. Now the market's been proceeding very strongly downward, and as it does so and reaches this reversal, it responds very volatily to move back up. Very strong because volatility exists. Now compare that with another series of signals, perhaps over here. Now here we have even a deeper, bigger, larger triangle. And yet what do we end up with? Well, a reversal over here that creates a little low, but is less than spectacular. Why? Because it's in a consolidation pattern. Lack of volatility means there's lack of strength in the signal. So consider that when you look at your reversals and your reversal signals. The higher the amount of volatility, the greater the reversal is likely to be. The lower the amount of volatility, the weaker the signal is likely to be as well. Another option open to us to determine the strongest reversals is that of simply using other methods or techniques to add to confirmation that any reversal will be a strong one. An example can be seen in this market. Even though we're forming higher highs, we actually have a divergence on the MACD here, which is usually indicative of a change in direction. By determining a reversal that fits within this area, we can add to confirmation that it's going to be a strong reversal. Triangulating these points gives us a reversal right here. And as you can see, any trader who took that signal would have profited very well. So it certainly is open to you to use other methods that you trust to add to the confirmation of any reversal signal. Of any method or technique that you can use for confirmation, the best will always be channel surfing and balance magic. To show an example, let's consider a technique from channel surfing, drawing a trend line and duplicating it and setting it upon an opposite point, or in this case a low, to determine where the market was likely to end. And you can see, well, we have the market extend too far here, which is a signal in channel surfing that the market's going to reverse direction. Just in line with that is, in fact, of course, a reversal. And that reversal is off of a couple of substantial points where we would expect a strong reversal. The end result is we have a reversal right in line with the channel surfing technique. But we don't just have that, we also can use the balance magic. And under balance magic, we have a balance point indicated in this trend right here. Using this point, we can develop a target off of the high, and using the balance point as a central point. And you can see that we end up right again on target. So the reversal is confirmed by two different methods, by the balance magic and by the channel surfing techniques. Reversal magic training video number 4, determining stronger reversals. This is a production of the Michael Parsons Trading Institute. All rights are reserved.